Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo, and good morning, Rufai. There's a whole lot going on with bond yields and gold prices. A lot of dot connecting to do, right? But yesterday we saw a big sell-off in bonds around the world, and it touched in on Japan and the UK in particular. So the 30-year yield, that's the 30-year bond, peaked at 3.2, which is an all-time high. I think it receded just a bit though, but in early trading, that's where we're at. 20-year yield peaked at 2.6. I haven't seen that since 1999 when Japan and also some other Asian nations were going through debt issues. Japan, as you know, is the most indebted country on the planet, 250% debt to GDP, although most of that is in yen. But anyway, look, workers are asking for higher wages in Japan. You've got rice shortages, inflation is rising, and the Bank of Japan is getting more hawkish in trying to raise rates. So bond holders are asking for higher yield. In the UK, the 10-year peaked at 4.8 yesterday. Even 30-year yields are rising. That is because of the fiscal situation that the UK is in. Rachel Reeves, of course, Chancellor of the Exchequer, has been talking about having to raise taxes, but then being pushed back. So bond investors are very worried about what's going on. In the US, it's very interesting that Trump keeps talking about how you have to lower rates because of mortgages. We're not at gold yet, so let's go back to the bonds. He talks about lowering interest rates, that the Fed should lower rates so that mortgages will be cheaper. But if you go back to that table, the mortgages are impacted by the US 30-year long-end mortgages, right? And bondholders that hold long-end or long-tenured bonds in the US are more worried about the fiscal structure of the US, the big beautiful bill, the deficit, and so on. So whatever happens with the Federal Open Market Committee and whatever they do with rates, that is on the shorter end of the curve, not the longer end. But the 30-year, that also almost peaked at 5%. We'll see where things go from there. Now, connect that with gold. Gold has now extended its record run now. It's now at 3,006. So if you take the worry that bond investors have over debt and so on, you're now seeing a flight to safety over to gold. So you connect the dots and you now see gold continuing to rise. With all the geopolitical stuff that's going on, worries over debt and so on and so forth. US markets opened yesterday. Remember, we had a Labor Day holiday to kick off September on Monday, so the markets resumed. And they were in the red. Although September historically is not really a good month for stocks historically in the United States, but still they fell. So we'll see how things continue. Again, it's the tariff issues. In fact, bond investors are now worried that with that court case now, with the appeals court saying that most of Trump's tariffs are illegal, maybe they have to pay that money back. So there's just a whole lot that's going on with the uncertainty there. And then Google escaped by the skin of their teeth in this antitrust case. Chrome. So the Department of Justice wanted them to sell off Chrome because it was established last year that it's basically a monopoly, right? Google, for example, or Alphabet pays Apple about $20 billion a year to make sure that Chrome is on your iPhone when you get it, although you can use Safari. But they've had these exclusive deals where they pay entities to make sure Chrome is packaged. It's like, it reminds you of Microsoft, right? When Microsoft was facing its own antitrust case for packaging Windows with every laptop or computer that you got. So the judge, interestingly enough, Judge Amit Mehta, said that it was AI that made him reconsider this case. He says the emergence of generative AI changed the course of this case. And essentially, and this is something I've talked about in the past, how I'll use myself as an example. I don't really use Google searches anymore. I just ask ChatGPT or Perplexity and so on, right? So he said basically that, look, with the competition that they're facing from AI, okay, how to break up Chrome and sell it off would be a little harsh. So basically now, though, the exclusive deals are over. The judge has ruled. I don't know, I think Google might appeal it. We'll see what happens, but maybe they should just take what they can get at this point. They can't make any exclusive deals to have Chrome embedded in any phones or systems, operating systems going forward. Finally, to Nigeria, I mean, you all have already talked about this with the revenues, but in the same way you connect the dots with what's happening with bonds and what's happening with gold, right? You connect the dots with Nigeria's, revenue performance as of August the 31st, right? So non-oil revenues, it's a good thing that we're seeing more collection from non-oil revenues. We've talked a lot about diversifying our income away from oil, even though still, till tomorrow, when you get our trade numbers, you'll see oil is where we make most of our money. But in stabilizing the currency, and you're seeing a rebound in corporate earnings. I mean, I gave an example of Boa Cement and Dangote that in half year 2025 made more money than they did in all of 2024. So when you see and you see the stock markets that is still, firing on, corporations making more money, that means the government is earning more in taxes and so on. And so you have more of this reliance on non-oil revenues, which is a good thing going forward. We just have to make sure that extends towards foreign exchange and so on and so forth. But yeah, you already touched on this, so not really much more for me to add to that.
Okay, so in all of this up and down that is going on in the international market, I would like to know the prospect of copper. Because copper too is another very good bellwether. Dr. Copper, as is famously called.
Yeah.
And
Trump is looking at tariffs on that too.
And looking at tariffs on that. So, you see, I think to a large extent, Trump should really cool down on this thing he's trying to do. This tariff everybody thing. Because you've created an imbalance in the world today. Most of the American numbers that are looking positive are because of the front load that have happened.
Yeah.
So, and he's also doing it in a cyclical manner, always giving this 90 days benchmark. He's cutting the deals in the middle of it, and he's coming back. He's doing a lot of cut and join. Because if you really say, okay, there's a definitive that you put tariff on, the blowback effect can be very cataclysmic. It's an indictment on Trump that everybody's running to gold today as a safe metal at a time like this, 3,600.
Yeah. Well, the Supreme Court is going to decide. That is where everything it looks like will end with this tariff matter.
But the fear I have with the Supreme Court is he has his bodies in the Supreme Court.
Right, true. Well, they might surprise us. I mean, we'll see.
He has his bodies in the Supreme Court. Well, isn't that Neil Gorsuch and co?
Gorsuch.
The people that will probably give an
Kelly,
opposition will be the likes of Ketanja. And goodness me, for the life of me, I've been reading Ketanja's dissent statements. It's good poetry.
Yeah, pretty strong. Yeah,
pretty strong. Yeah. So people like them, Ketanja, maybe Sonia Sotomayor, and apart from that, but once you have people like Neil Gorsuch, you have the other guy that was accused of
collecting money
and the likes. So the court is pretty much his.
I have more faith in the courts. I think the courts will rule against
Okay,
I think they will.
Wait till they surprise me.
It's interesting though. So let's not be too hard on the Nigerian courts because we also have bodies abroad. If the US can, we can be skeptical about their courts.
Stop
it means no. What I'm saying, I know you always say that.
Makes a good point, though.
What I'm saying is that there's no perfect institution, but we aim to keep building our institutions to make them stronger. And it's not an excuse for us to not have trust in our justice. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let me talk about Google. Obviously, because that's, a lot of people can identify with that. Some things that we see as normal.
Exactly.
And just speaking from, just in terms of the everyday user, is a big deal in America. And this is where you have fair play for businesses. Because what they've gone to court to say is that Google initiated an artificial monopoly by some of the practices that you already mentioned, engineering and an agreement with Apple, for instance. So it's not just automatic that you go on Apple, use your iPhone, and you want to type something and it's a Google search that happens. In fact, they own the market so much that we use the word when you want to search for something, Google it. Google it.
It's
so
a verb,
they own the market. And the judge rightly said, Judge Amit, that thankfully AI is now going to break it. Even with the advent of AI, Google has also, they've been able to absorb AI or use AI as well as part of their search engine
Gemini,
Gemini to enhance it and to even, hold that market strong. What does this mean for them? In terms of revenue for them, I don't know to what extent it will hit their revenue because already they were grappling with an AI option for their search engine. That's one. Number two is also that even though the judge has ruled, in the case of Microsoft that you mentioned, it took 5 years for them to get to an agreement following appeals and challenging it in court. Like you said, I don't know if Google is going to go ahead to challenge it in court or just be happy that they were able to didn't break up Google and just go ahead and come to get an agreement. It might make the decision a bit faster. And like you mentioned, the other things that they're grappling with. But it just goes to show where businesses are well moderated. We have organizations in Nigeria that have engineered artificial. What I'm saying is that artificial monopoly, and it still happens. But we see in a place where, for enabling business environment, justice system, the courts must work as well. Not that you have cases that are tied up for years and years, no decision is made, and the companies, who are able to find their way, dominate the market artificially, making it impossible for other smaller businesses or other businesses to play in a fair market where competition is rife. Competition is good for the consumers, it's good for for the quality of service. It's good for business, as a whole. So I'm really glad to see this happen. And let's just see how that plays out. If Google will appeal this decision, or if they'll be happy with what they've got and just continue with their matter.
Well, Google is not appealing.
Yeah.
Google says it is, pleased with what has been done.
Oh, they are, eh? Okay.
Because what Department of Justice of the United States took to court was to say that Chrome must be sold. This is a search engine over which Google was accused of exercising a monopoly. Now, that case has taken a whole year. Now, Judge Amit Mehta has now ruled that no, as you say, that would be too harsh. Don't let them sell, but let them share information, data with other partners within that space. So it's about antitrust law, And the thing I want to talk about is about how can Nigeria learn from this example. Nigeria has a 2018 law, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act. That's what it is called, the FCCPA. Now you have many businesses in Nigeria, exercising monopoly. Who is imposing or enforcing the antitrust law in Nigeria? I do not want to give examples. No, I'm just talking about what can be learned from other jurisdictions in order to ensure equity, fairness, justice within the business space. Now, as for the yields, now the thing is that in the US, even the yields have gone up by about 5%. In the UK, the main problem is about the weakness of the pound against the dollar. The pound is about 1.5% weaker than the dollar. So investors are asking for more, particularly in the event of, in the United States, the federal judge ruling, the federal district court ruling against Trump's tariffs, that most of them are completely illegal. Scott Bessent says that, well, they will go to the Supreme Court, and he thinks that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the Trump administration. But that even if that does not happen, there's still a leeway. They'll fall back on the Smoot-Hawley Act, which is the Tariff Act, the U.S. Tariff Act of 1930, under which the Parliament added stress to the Depression by increasing tariffs from about 40% to 60%. It's one of the most controversial legislations in the United States. In other words, the U.S. is not out of the loop yet about this uncertainty that it has created. The market also, went down on Tuesday. So this is what we are seeing, in terms of Treasury yields. They call it gilts in England, going up. Now, as for what is that other topic? Gold! Yes, your favorite topic. You talked about gold yesterday. You are talking about it yesterday. Why is gold now appreciating? 3,600, you said. It's actually 3,598.50. But you rounded it up.
So that is a gold investor.
you rounded it up. What are the issues? The independence of the central bank. The fear that rates may be cut by the central bank, by the Fed, later in the month, and then economic uncertainty. When there is economic uncertainty, people rush to a safe haven, which gold provides. So it will keep appreciating for as long as Trump continues to impose uncertainty on the market. Well, thank you very much, Rotus.